Hi everyone, good evening. I'm Jane at Rockin' Worms. Welcome to my channel. What I'm going to talk to you tonight about is desperate times calls for desperate measures. I have a lot of material that I need to dry down enough to be able to sift out my castings and at the same time concentrate my cocoons and any potential wisps that I have, especially from my breeder bin. So let's get into it. What I'm doing is setting up a drying station, which will consist of some bins and some fans and a lot of monitoring. There we go. All right, so I'm going to start with these two bins right here, which are breeder bins. I literally pulled the breeders out of these bins. One was this afternoon, the other one was last night. These bins have not been sifted at all. And you can see, just look at, you can even see it on my gloves, and it's just really wet. There's no way you can sift this. Look at all those cocoons. That's fantastic. Look at that. Okay, like I said, breeder bin. Can't sift mud, but on the other hand, let's look in the other bin here for a minute. I got to reach over. The breeders really love it. That's not a great one. The breeders really love it being super moist. Now this is the bin that I pulled the breeders out last night. You can see it is a little bit, can't hear it as much as this one you could. So this one's already starting to dry down, but since I have, tons of cocoons in here and I want to separate them out of the castings before more and more start hatching, I need a way to dry down these volumes as quickly and safely as I possibly can. So using my newfound friend, the fan, like I said, set up a drying table station on my workbench. And what I'm doing here is literally dumping out the first breeder bin. And I'm not going to clean it down as much as I will, after I'm done shooting the video, just, to save your time. But I'm dumping the majority of the material. Now we're doing the second bin, which isn't quite as damp. So maybe I'll separate them a little bit. Not that it matters, okay? Because I'm going to talk about, what you're going to do when this stuff does start drying down. You got a couple options. So again, I'm dumping the majority of the material from this breeder bin into this larger bin. This larger bin is an under the bed bin with little wheels on it because it goes under your bed, right? And so you can pull it in and out under your bed. But guess what? Yes, I picked it up off the side of the road. Somebody had thrown it out. I'm just spreading this out a little bit because it was cracked over here. So what we did is put on a lot of tape to cover that crack up so worms can't get through it so easy. Now, I don't have any adult worms in here. Like I said, this was a breeder bin. I pulled out all the adults, but I'm going to have wisps. And if you know anything about these, persnickety little worms, sometimes they will somehow find the minutest crack you have and find their way through it. So if you do have a bin that has a little bit of a crack and you're not quite ready to throw it out yet and you still want to use it, make sure you tape it up really well and just keep an eye on it. Okay, so this bin is almost ready to go. All I've done is dumped in the contents, spread it out roughly, and this is actually a tip that I kind of, came across myself. I kind of wish somebody had, pointed it out to me. So when I'm drying down castings or bedding materials, in the past, I had kind of like, smoothed it out because that's how we're used to seeing our bedding in our worm bins, right? Like this. And that's how I was doing it. But then I started thinking about it. I want to increase the surface area to increase the drying down, right? So if I do a little bit of this, I'm now quite a bit increasing the surface area that can now even dry down faster. So there's a little tip for you. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn on the fan. It's going to have a little noise, but I'm only going to let it run for just a minute, and so you can see how it works, and then we'll talk about it. So this is just your standard oscillating fan, no big deal. And I have it set up so it's, the sweep, the airflow is covering the majority of the bin. This is on its lowest setting, which is actually, pretty high for an airflow for the dry down. So I am going to want to watch this carefully to make sure I don't over dry the top and, desiccate any of the many cocoons that are lying on the surface of this material. Okay, I'm going to turn this off now. Okay, so what if you have a fan that doesn't oscillate? Well, what you can do is just let it dry down whatever the specific area is that it covers, and then harvest that, do your sifting, put your cocoons into your cocoon bin, and then move the wetter material on the ends into that, airflow area. Or you can gently mix up the material and incorporate that dry area into the moisture other areas to equalize the moisture level throughout your bedding, and then dry it down and continue to do it that way. The choice is really yours. Okay, I'm not really sure. Cameraman's trying to suggest something to me.
You could also put the fan on the end and just blow across the whole thing.
Yes, okay. That's a great point. Thank you for that. So if your setup is such and your fan has, again, the power, you can set it up so the fan blows lengthwise. For me, this setup, given the width of my table and what I have, works best. Okay, but I am probably going to be moving this setup over to my dining room table because I need my workspace in my wormery. So I may, set it up just like the cameraman just suggested. Now, I have another bin and I want to set this one up. This one's going to be a little different, even though the concept is the same. This is sifted material out of my breeder bins, okay? So all of this material came out of 2 breeder bins, just like the material in the, this bin I just dumped came out of 2 breeder bins. So this just shows you, by the way, with using the indoor tabletop compost as a base for your basic bedding. I also add in sifted cow manure, but certainly you can add in coconut coir or peat moss or, nothing if you want. There's nothing wrong with just using the pre-compost the way it is. Your worms will love it just that way. But anyways, this is, all the castings that came out of 2 bins during that 3-week cycle. So, pretty good to get this many castings out of breeder bins. All right. Anyways, so this is some of the sift, and it is stuff that went through the 1/18 inch, but not through the 1/12 inch. So most of a lot of the cocoons, are concentrated in this intermittent area. Most of the cocoons are in the above the 1/8 inch screen. Those are what I call my overs, and they go into the cocoon bin along with the unprocessed bedding, okay? And then, of course, anything that goes through the 1/12 inch screen, I consider just to be pure castings, and they go into my casting buckets and then out to the garden. So this is the material that's trapped between the two sifters. And there is a good amount of cocoons in here. And I'm not quite willing to send them all out to the garden. So what I want to do is dry down the castings. I'm trying to find a bunch of cocoons in here. It's sometimes hard. Oh, there was one. Hold on. Here's one. Okay. It's a little bit darker color, and here's a nice bright yellow one here, and here's a darker one. Okay. So what I want to do is dry down the castings enough that I can sift them out and concentrate the cocoons with a little bit of castings on the top of the 1/12-inch sifter. But of course, during that dry down process, I don't want to go too far because I don't want to desiccate these and potentially, kill the little worms in there waiting to emerge. So again, careful monitoring, but if I can sift a lot of the castings out of this material and be able to put it right into my castings bucket, that saves me time from hand picking out all these cocoons out of all this material, which honestly takes a couple hours, takes several hours. I don't mind doing it because I usually watch a video or a movie when I'm doing the picking of the cocoons, but it's getting to a point with my time constraints that I just don't have the luxury to do the handwork much anymore. I just have to get more efficient with my time usage. So my new friend, the fan. So this fan, let's see which way it goes. Yep, okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, so this fan also oscillates, but you can tell it's from the sound, that it is a lower, more gentle airflow going over the bin, which is what I wanted for this, quote, more delicate material, where the material in the first bin can stand a little bit more airflow to dry it down without it being a problem. Okay, so that's kind of where we are. So what am I going to do next with this is, one, I'm going to clean out the bins. So all the material in the bins get into their respective bin. Oh, let me turn this off. Sorry about that. There we go. I'm going to clean out the bins so all the respective material gets in their respective bins. First of all, because I don't want to leave any cocoons or whiffs behind. And then I'm going to, turn the fans back on and let them start drying down. And in the meantime, I'm going to go do other jobs. And I'm going to come back and check on these periodically. I'll probably check every 15 minutes, and then I'll see if I can check every half an hour kind of thing. But at some point, I'm going to be checking every, 10 minutes or so, because I'm waiting to get, again, that sweet spot where I can sift out the castings, but leave the cocoons in safe, good shape. Okay? So there you go. If you get yourself in a position where you've got a lot of material and you need to, deal with it in an expedited manner, then doing a little setup like this to dry your material down quickly but carefully may be what you need to do. And don't forget, you can use any table you have. This stuff is probably going to go to my dining room table, but if you have a counter, a play table from your kids' room or something, use what you've got, right? And make it work for you. All right. I hope you have a good evening. Like, subscribe, share. It's all good. And I'll see you on the next video. I am yours in the dirt, Jane.